Rogue, there you are, you little monster, came a shout from across the street. Rogue looked up from the table where he was sitting and spending time with his teammates, Kite, Sarah, and Boyari, and over to a man dressed in legendary battle gear as he stormed across the street and over to the table. "So who's this guy?" asked Kite as he nibbled on his steak. Rogue furrowed his brow slightly. "Just someone I helped in the past," he replied. The man soon stopped in front of the table and pointed angrily at Rogue. Upon seeing this, the streets immediately cleared. It was obvious that nobody else wanted any part of this. Only Rogue's team remained unbothered by this. "Can I help you?" asked Rogue. You. Animal, shouted the man. "Excuse me?" asked Rogue curiously. You've constantly ruined my life." Boyari chuckled lightly at this. "What did he do this time? Blow up the dragon you were trying to capture?" he asked. The legendary player growled angrily at Rogue. "No, he has repeatedly and constantly humiliated me," he roared. The other three all looked at Rogue and then back at the player. "What do you mean, humiliated?" asked Kite. "This man has tricked me repeatedly. Once, he gave me instructions on how to find a valuable treasure I'd been seeking for, but instead I got sprayed by a skunk monster. I then had to go find a tomato monster and let it eat me so that I could wash that wretched smell from my body." This made Rogue's team snicker quietly. Another time, shortly after I had just bought a new house and needed to move it, he told me to put it into my bag of holding and use that to transport it to its new location. However, when I did that, the house was destroyed and turned into a pile of shattered wooden nails, shouted the player. More grins and smirks followed this retelling. And then there was the time that I was going boar hunting. Sure, you told me where to find them, but you never said that I would be facing a Chaos-class armored boar. I got myself stomped so bad, I had to respawn 8 times. Louder snorts echoed from the table upon hearing this. "Oh, and let's not forget about the time I asked you where I could find the best place to fish. You told me that, but then conveniently forgot to tell me that it was haunted by a legendary class sea serpent. The stupid thing ate me like popping a grape in your mouth." Now the snorts and giggles were almost impossible to hide, causing the man to glare at the others briefly with dark vitriol before turning his attention back to Rogue. "And what about all the money I lost by taking your advice to go to that one shopkeeper to sell all my old gear? Sure, I got a great price for them, but you neglected to tell me that he only transacts in Kingdom Dargio's coins. I had to hike myself halfway across the continent just to convert them to the local coin, only to find out there's a huge markup on the exchange. Thanks to you, I lost a fortune rather than making a profit." The player panted heavily as he continued to grow more and more angry. "Oh, and let we forget the time I went to battle that rust monster. You told me how to defeat him, sure, but you also failed to tell me that it required special gear to do it. Because of you, he rusted all of my gear into dust, and I lost everything." By this point in time, Kite, Sarah, and Boyari were nearly ready to fall out of their chairs with laughter. Rogue, however, remained calm, instead quietly cracking a light smile at the poor man's multitude of self-inflicted calamities and disasters. He then shook his head at this. "I wasn't the one who caused you all of that grief," he replied lightly. "Yes, you were," screamed the player. "No, I was not. In the case of the skunk monster, you only asked me if I knew where that particular treasure was. But you never asked me what monsters were in the area and how to avoid them. For the house, yes, I told you that you could move it by putting it into your bag of holding. But you never asked if there was anything special you needed to do when you did that. To move a house or any large structure via a bag of holding, you also need to implement deconstruction and reconstruction spells. Otherwise, the house will crumble exactly as you saw. For the armored boars, you only asked me where they were, not if you were capable of fighting them, or even how best to go about it. For the fishing spot, you only asked me where the best spot was to fish. You never asked me what monsters might be there. Then, for the shop that I recommended to you where you could sell your gear, you only asked for the best place and not what gotchas you might encounter when you shop there. And for that rust monster, you asked where it could be found and not what considerations or special weapons you need to defeat it. So, in the end, Any issues that you encountered along the way were entirely of your own doing, as you failed to ask good questions, he replied with muted frustration. The player's eyebrow twitched with anger. You're supposed to tell me those things, he roared. Rogue looked at the man incredulously. I can only give you good information if you ask good questions. You, however, did not. So that's entirely your fault, he said flatly. The player looked at him in disbelief. You actually believed I'd ask those kinds of questions? Aren't you supposed to tell me those things? He roared. Rogue smirked. I can't tell you what you don't know if I don't know that you don't know, he replied. The player grew even more irate at this, drew out his legendary sword, and pointed it at Rogue disdainfully. I have had enough of you. I will make you pay for Dutch. Just then Rogue gave a gentle nod of his head, throwing the man into the air with a powerful heave, and far, far off into the distance, possibly even as far as the next continent over. Seeing this, the others chuckled slightly, and shook their heads in disbelief as they continued eating their meals. And this is why you always ask good questions and don't argue with Rogue, said Kite. Ain't that the truth? Replied Boyari with a grin. Indeed, replied Rogue with a chuckle. As they continued to sit there and talk about their next mission, Sarah remembered something that had been said earlier. So, is there really a skunk monster around here somewhere? She asked. Rogue laughed. So, do you want me to show it to you? Or would you rather I just tell you its details? He asked. Sarah immediately waved dismissively. Nah, we're fine with you just telling us about it. I mean, I'd hate to go face it and then have to get eaten by a tomato monster just to get cleaned up. Rogue laughed at this. Very well. Where should I begin?